And so I married a woman who stayed at home, who took care of my needs, who was going to have kids. And she ended up turning into an entrepreneur and all of that. Now, what's interesting is that it's so funny when people watch the episode that I did recently with Lisa, they're like, oh, she wears the pants in the family, and oh, Tom's beta. It's like, bitch, if you watch the whole episode, you are going to realize very quickly that isn't true.
No.
That I have a really strong belief that my job is to uplift her and to help her become the best version of herself and who she wants to be. But that in no uncertain terms, and Lisa will be the first to tell you this, that my role is to be the emotionally stable one, to be the rock, to, if she's getting out of pocket, quite frankly, emotionally, I'm there to nudge her back in and bring her back in line, which is something that I've heard you talk a lot about.
They define beta so like childlike. If you just have a strong woman and you support her, like, oh, you're beta. Beta is simply a case that you have a wife that absolutely adores you and loves you. You can't really be beta when you have a woman like that, who is so unbelievably loyal, so dedicated to you, because whatever you've done has created that outcome in her. So you're by design alpha. Whereas beta, what I would say is when you have, in a relationship sense, is when you have a woman who's disrespectful, disloyal, is not madly in love with you, and instead of leaving, you reward that behavior. That is beta. But if you've got a very loving, loyal wife, which you, praise be to God, do have, it's impossibility for you to be a beta, because of how did you manage to get this connection out of her? How did you get this dedication out of her? How did you get this loyalty out of her? So the dynamic can't be beta, in my opinion.
Yeah, I haven't looked closely enough at the problem to know if a woman can really fall and commit to a beta male. There are relationships in my circle, people that I know but not well, where they very much fit the description of he really is beta and she really is alpha. I'm not inside their house. I don't know if it's
But is she dedicated and loyal to him?
It seems to be from the outside.
Then
but
it's limited in how beta. It might be just a case of he's a people pleaser and he's sensitive. But I really think beta is more of a case of rewarding disloyalty, rewarding promiscuity, or begging
that
for
for
attention.
sure is a simp.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, so I would
No
say
doubt.
that's more what I lean into when I define beta. If your wife is loving and loyal to you, I don't care how you got that out of her, you got that out of her, so therefore your relationship is relatively good. But if she is disrespectful and disloyal, doesn't matter if you then stamp your authority and you've got muscles, you're still not alpha. You cannot be alpha. It's an impossibility. So I would just say that the level of loyalty that you've derived out of your wife would make it difficult for me to believe it's beta.
Yeah, no, I very much agree that, God, would I go into the alpha beta? At least I used to talk in these terms for a long time.
I don't really talk into these terms. And
so
I also hate the high value, low value kind of.
Well, that got spoiled. Didn't
Yeah.
it? So I don't know why I'm hesitant. I don't like the terms alpha and beta, but I will say, here's what I think is a mature dynamic.
Yeah.
There are things that I'm better at than my wife. In those moments, I should lead. There are things that my wife is better at than I am. In those times, she should lead. When you balance it all out, my wife will tell you that I'm the right person to lead most of the time.
Yeah.
And so if you say, Lisa, who's the leader in the family? She'll say, it's my husband for sure, 100%. But I was a fool in the early days when I thought I had to lead all the time, and she would only respect me if I was like alpha dominant.
Yeah.
And so there is a lack of maturity in that.
Yeah. Well, good leadership is knowing when to delegate.
Correct.
And therefore, you have a wife that you can delegate things to. If you've chosen a wife that you can't delegate anything to, and you just have to lead everything, you haven't got a wife, you've got a child. And that's not very good leadership. That's just poor delegation.
Yeah. And I think, so going back, okay, this is a breakdown of values. It's a breakdown of a vision of what the future really should look like, I think, because I think that men now are in some ways getting confused about what they want. Do I want a partner or do I want a sex toy? And if you want...
Hi guys, welcome back to my Patreon, where every single week you can tune in and get exclusive content. Not only that, but you can also message me anytime and receive a response within 20
Okay, this is a breakdown of values. It's a breakdown of a vision of what the future really should look like, I think, because I think that men now are in some ways getting confused about what they want. Do I want a partner or do I want a sex toy? And if you want a sex toy, fine, but there you are there are trade-offs. You are going to give up a meaningful part of the human experience. If you want a wife and you are letting women trample all over you, you're going to end up being the child in the relationship. And so people really have to understand, like, one thing that happened to me, and we talked briefly in our last episode about this, but the girl that I was dating right before Lisa started to pull away. And I really am, I just live by a paradigm of things that I believe to be true. And one of the things that I believe to be true was, if somebody pulls away from you, the only wise response is to reciprocate and pull away from them. And so she pulled away from me, I pulled away from her, and then that brought her closer to me. And I was like, I can't believe this works. And so I was like, okay, that's hysterical, but fine, got it. I was also told that you need to be an asshole if you want to get laid. It's not that, it's confidence. But so literally, I'm not joking. Let's say I learned that at 5 p.m. on a Wednesday night. By 5 p.m. on Thursday, I was able to get laid. It was hysterical.
It makes that much of a difference,
from one day to the next, because you actually now have the unlock. Oh, I get it. I can't have fear of loss. And once I was like, oh, I can't have fear of loss. Like, I just have to be like, this is who I am. If you're interested, great. And if not, then you'll walk away. And so I literally tried it as an experiment. I'm not kidding.
Instant.
Yes. And so I was like, this is hysterical. So this is what I talk about, predictive validity. When you have figured out the thing that is true, then it will meet the real world and it will actually work. So anyway, people just need to understand what their goal is, what they're trying to achieve, and then build a rule set that's actually going to get them there. But they also need to know what their values are. Values are tied to how you believe the world ought to be, and so that you'll respect yourself when you're by yourself.
But here's what I would say to people: your values are not what you think, it's what you do. So many people will think, my values are, I want somebody traditional, I've got values, I want a successful man, or whatever it is. But what do you do in your real world? Who do you actually connect with? Who do you actually reward? Don't base your values on what you think is going on. What do you actually do? Now, if your values are that you reward men who pull away from you, you're always chasing after men, or you're always going for the guy that's super attractive and got lots of girls but then doesn't give you attention, you have to be honest with yourself. Is, what do I actually value? Well, I don't value commitment and responsibility from men. I'm actually valuing this. Where people get wrong is they edit their values mentally but not actually in terms of behavior. So mentally they'll say they've got all these great values. If you speak to everybody, they'll say, I want this, that and the other, and they say it well. But try and derive your values as almost do an inventory of your actual behaviors and who you've been rewarding in your past, who have you fallen in love with, what are your patterns, who have you rejected, and that shows you what your values actually are, not what you think they are. Don't airbrush your values just to sound like you're looking for someone great. Who are you actually rewarding? And if you do an inventory of your past relationships and you realize that I've always said no to guys that are actually very kind. I've always been very attached to men that are toxic and, you know, unavailable. I kind of always attached to men who are following a bunch of bikini girls online. And so your values are a bit like, they're not consistent. That your values are, you're looking for somebody who deprives you of the commitment and connection. Now that you know your value, you can either change it or accept it. But don't delude yourself into thinking you've got the right values when you're in the dating pool, because that will have you confused, because you'll think you're doing nothing wrong and you just can't find the right guy. But it's not that you're doing nothing wrong and you can't find the right guy, it's because you're rewarding the wrong and then assuming you still want the right guy.
Yeah, getting your values right.
Look at your behaviors. They'll tell you your values. I can say I'm really healthy, but I never go to the gym and I don't eat healthy. That means I'm not.